Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this international seminar from STEM to STEAM, held within the framework of the IartNET project and aligned with the broader work of the large scale partnership for cultural and creative industries. This event is organized in the frame of the project IartNET, an international platform for artistic research and cultural heritage in higher education in the arts and music, which is funded by the NextGenerationEU program and coordinated by Brera Academy, which will take the floor on the closing note of this seminar by Professor Domenico Quaranta. We have two parallel session for this seminar. One is this one, actually, so a session which is in the room, and for those who are participating, there will be a couple of let's say sessions in which you will have the opportunity to make questions to the panelists. And we have also an outside of the room session which is broadcasted on YouTube. And for the technical organization of this, I want to thank Mr. Andrea Angeli and Miss Anna Lanaya, who are the technical directors of this occasion. Accademia Teatro, alla Scala, which is the institution I represent, is hosting the seminar. Accademia is a partner institution of the IartNET project and is also a partner of the large-scale partnership for cultural and creative industries by coordinating one of the working groups of the alliance, namely the working group on cross-sectorial innovation. As you know, our seminar today aims at reflecting on how cross-sectorial practices are framing new job opportunities for cultural and creative industries professionals. On the one hand, this sounds quite ambitious, especially because, as you know, we are going to work together for a couple of hours. But I think that on the other hand, we are aiming to suggest today a different pace in the overall cross-sectorial reflection. In fact, the today's seminar wishes to address the topic from an occupational perspective across different sectors, focusing as much as possible on data and on practices to define new job opportunities arising in the labor market for cultural and creative industries professionals. By investigating available and tangible opportunities between different industries, we do have the chance to identify specific demands from the industry which are or have to influencing our educational and training approaches. So to provide students with a set of competencies which is supplementing somehow the set of knowledge that academies use to provide. To be fully honest with you, the shift from STEM to STEAM is for sure a hot topic, but it is also an excuse to focus the attention on the contemporary creative sector and on the contemporary creative industry. The consideration on the transition from STEM to STEAM are moving since almost 20 years now, but behind the theoretical reflection, there is a social and economic system which is concretely suggesting a different paradigm in art and more in general in all professions related to creativity. So let me say that without any doubt, our reflection today points at the labor market, but does not forget all the theoretical work which is at the basis of it. Basically, we will try to address the topic of innovation in the cultural and creative sector by considering how this concept does impact on training and on skills development. We hope it will be a valuable opportunity to reflect on how creativity, innovation, and education do intersect and how new professional pathways are emerging at the crossroads between different disciplines and sectors. Before entering in the first panel, I would like to suggest a brief reflection on a transformation that concerns all of us and which does represent a sort of umbrella concept, maybe better, an umbrella debate. And this debate is about the continuously evolving role of the artist in the contemporary society. When we speak about cultural and creative industries professionals, we are not just talking about artists, of course. Accademia Teatro alla Scala is actually an institution training performers, so singers, musicians, dancers, but also designers, set costume designers, lighting designers, technicians, and also those professionals taking care of the administrative and organizational aspects of a cultural event. Therefore, the attention is focused on training professionals in a full frame perspective, perfectly knowing which are all the aspects concurring in the cultural system. However, all professionals lead to an arriving point which is represented by art and by its evolution in the contemporary ecosystem. We do know that for much of, let's say, of modern history, the artist has been conceived as an autonomous figure, so independent, self-contained, and guided by the ideal of art for art's sake. This vision is deeply rooted in European cultural tradition and has shaped the notion of the artist as a solitary creator, largely detached from social and economic processes. But beside the philosophical speculation, we do know that this concept was justified by supporting market. Today, on the other hand, technological upgrades, large-scale availability of tools, I'm especially referring to digital creation tools and multimedia communication tools, does change in cultural distribution, did change the cultural distribution mechanism and did affect the market deeply. We have an obvious example in how the music market changed in the last 20 years and how changed the sideline professions, all those sideline professions which was supporting the music artist in the past century. Events managers, producers, directors of production, sound technicians, etc. And the same we can probably say about the visual art market or the publishing industry, and also about the audiovisual sector as well. We do know that the paradigm is continuously shifting, but many times in our analysis, in our reflections and researches, we are still strongly influenced by the art for art's sake paradigm. What the social and economical environment is telling us is that across different fields and contexts, of course, we are witnessing the emergence of a different kind of artist and different kind of cultural professionals. This is an artist who work with civil society industries, who works with nowadays business industries, and also an artist who works with communities within territories and across different systems of knowledge. Artists and cultural professionals do contribute not only to cultural production, but also to social and economic innovation through creative methods, critical perspective, and collaborative approaches. Several theorists have clearly articulated this shift. Professor Grant Kester and his influential writings, from conversation pieces to his recent work on the reinvention of artistic subjectivity, highlight how many contemporary processes, contemporary practices are grounded in dialogue, are grounded in listening, and in the co-creation of shared processes. In this view, the artists and the cultural professionals do not merely represent the world. The artists enter the world, engage with its complexities, and participate in its transformation. On the other side of the artwork, there is an audience, and the audience is not a passive receiver, but it becomes an active subject, which is giving to the performance. And please take this last statement as a metaphor. It is actually a near quotation of John Stevens, who was a band leader, drummer, and musician of the free jazz British movement of the late 70s and the early 80s. And John Stevens gave birth to the Community Music Organization and School in London in 1983, and did provide several insights about a completely different perspective of the relationship between audience and artists, suggesting a different role for the latter, which is closer to the idea of a creative process facilitator. Transposing or transporting Stephen's consideration into the contemporary world, we could assume that the so-called audience is actually the society, and society stands for different kind of groups. It stands for people of communities who are benefiting of a social engagement action led by a creative person. Society means stakeholders of different industries benefiting from the creative action translated in a sort of plus, enhancing the attractiveness of a consumer good. Society means business sectors that go beyond the guiding principle of profit alone and are influenced by the aesthetic and ethical implications that derive from the embedded contribution of creativity. So, in this new envisaged ecosystem, the aesthetic value is no longer confined to the finished artwork, but emerges through relationships, through the ability to generate collective insight and the ability to generate collective imagination. Maybe maybe this reflection should impact also the debate on artistic research, as the forms that arts is taking on in the contemporary era are sometimes more relevant than the content and concept of the artwork itself. And when I say form, I'm especially thinking to those forms which are extremely hybrid, interconnected with other industries, and even unconventional compared to the paradigm of art for art's sake. And this perspective surely resonates deeply with the transition from STEM to STEAM. Integrating the arts into scientific and technological environments is not about just ornamenting an existing structure or ornamenting existing structures. It is about recognizing that creativity is essential to addressing the challenges of contemporary society. So, creativity understood as critical thinking, sensitivity, envisioning, and problem reframing. We do see this across multiple domains, actually: urban regeneration, participatory processes, digital innovation, sustainability, and beyond. In all of these areas, artistic and creative competencies play a decisive role in connecting stakeholders, a decisive role in facilitating dialogue, and in imagining new possible futures. For this reason, discussing new job opportunities and educational strategies today means acknowledging the growing importance of the artist as a facilitator of processes, as a professional capable of navigating multiple languages, bridging disciplines, and contributing to organizational, social, and technological transformation. The role of the cultural and creative sector is probably to identify these developments and translate them into supporting tools and supporting opportunities. And this leads us again to the educational and vocational aspect. Taking my institution, Accademia Scala, as an example, I can say that as an institution with a long tradition in professional training, which actually started in La Scala Opera House in times and in decades in which training wasn't formalized at all. Well, Accademia La Scala DNA forces the institution to continuously reflect on skills in terms of emerging skills, in terms of upskilling, in terms of reskilling, in terms of skills development, integration of new skills, and traditional knowledge. So, sort of proactive dialogue between innovation and tradition. Basically, this is what led us to the choice of the today panelists also. The program we have today does explore these topics from several complementary angles. First, the evolution of skill needs in the performing arts and audiovisual sectors. Secondly, the changing labor market for cultural and creative professionals. Then the impact of digitalization and artificial intelligence. And finally, the educational implications for preparing future generations. These are complex and urgent questions requiring cross sectoral dialogue and a shared commitment to innovation. We will try to face this today by starting from an European perspective and after a short virtual coffee break by looking at a national specificity, the Italian one, which I consider is an interesting sample for the EU reflection. So let me introduce now the panel one, which is titled The Creative Skills Europe Experience, State of the Art and Relevant Reflection from Both Employers and Employees' Perspectives. Um, it's when we talk about Creative Skills Europe, we talk about an initiative which is supported by the European Commission and builds on the experience of the social dialogue partners at national and EU levels, and is grounded in regional and local realities thanks to the support and active participation of key employment and skill organizations from different EU countries. Creative Skills Europe brings together stakeholders from the European audiovisual and live performance sector, combining trade unions, employers' organization, national skills body, education and training providers, of course, and professional associations. It is piloted by a pool of European social partners, including Uni Europa, Euromei, and Pearl, Live Performance Europe. Uni Europa, Euromei represents over 70 unions and guilds in the media, entertainment, and arts sector in Europe. And it is represented today in this panel by its coordinator, Valentin Gelsis. PER, Live Performance Europe, is the European Sector Federation of Performing Arts Organization, and it is represented today in this first panel by the director, Anita Debar. So with great pleasure, I officially open today's proceedings and invite our first panel to begin. Thank you all. Okay, just to wait for one of the panelists, which probably had a little issue at the moment. Okay, I wait for instruction. I feel a bit like a television character in the moment. I don't have jokes to tell, so I hope everybody will join very soon. Yes. Okay, maybe we can start with Valentin Gessis, and Anita will join as after she solved her little issue, probably. Waiting for instructions. Yes, please. Okay, Valentin.
Good
I,
morning, good afternoon, actually, everyone.
I
Yes, I
would
can
suggest
jump
to
in
leave, I
for
would
any
suggest to leave the floor to you, and then Anita will join us as soon as she solves the little issue she's facing. Okay. Thank you
Sure,
very much.
perfect.
Please.
Yes, I do also have a presentation that I can share with you. Yes. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm Valentin Gelsis, and I'm the coordinator for Uni Europa for the media, entertainment, and arts sector, which represents technicians in both audiovisual and live performance sector. And we have been coordinating this project that is called Creative Skills Europe that Umberto presented, and that has been running now for over a decade. And it's a project that is piloted by social partners. And I think here it's interesting in the context of that seminar because when we talk about cross-sectoral synergies, it's really much what we try to do through this project, because it's both audiovisual and live performance sector, and it's representing a wide range of professionals through our membership. So on the employer side, we have Pearl, so my colleague Anita, who will be joining us later, who is representing Pearl, Live Performance Europe. So it's the Employers Federation at European level that brings together theaters and different venues, festivals, etc. And we have also the European Broadcasting Union that brings together all the public broadcasters across Europe. And then we have the worker side. And here we have us, but we also have the International Federation of Musicians, the International Federation of Actors, and the European Federation of Journalists. And in the context of that project, we think it's very interesting to have every professionals from these two sectors, because often the skills there are transferable. And it's professionals that can jump from one sector to another, and it's knowledge, and it's also skills and ways of learning into the sector that are very familiar, let's say similar, but also we don't often have the opportunity to be together to talk about this. So I think that's what the idea of this project was originally. And we work at European level also with a strong national anchor. And here our national anchors are the sector skills bodies and other training institutions, academias, etc. That's why we have been in touch so much in the past decade with Accademia Teatro, Scala, but also similar training organizations that are catering to audiovisual and live performance professionals, and that have different also formats. In France, for example, we have what they're called the CPNEF, and they're paritary bodies, both for live performance and audiovisual sector, that are composed of employers and trade union organizations. Hello, Anita.
Oh, sorry.
Do you want? Do you want to jump in
now?
Yeah, you are.
Oh my God! Sorry. No, please go ahead.
Okay, that's
I don't know
fine.
what happened. I didn't move anything, so suddenly magic interfered. Please
So yes, I was just presenting the partnership, but maybe then you can present maybe the past activities that we've done. Is that okay for the next slide?
Sure.
Okay, let's do this. So yes, I was telling everyone that we have a strong anchor with national partners, and here these skills bodies and educational bodies, they really help us understand at European level and at national level what are the key skills needs, what are the skills trends, what are the skills and the different training schemes that professional needs in the course of their career. So it's very important to have that network, and it's also interesting to bring these different sector skills bodies together, because the way things are done in France are very different than the ways they're done in Sweden or in the Netherlands, for example. And so there's a lot of ways in which we can push for cross-sectoral synergies there, because there's a lot of ways to learn together at European level. And so with this growing partnership that we've had for over a decade now, we've run a lot of different activities and networking events, etc. And I will let Anita present a bit more the past strands of activities that we've had with Creative Skills Europe.
Yes, thank you, Valentine. And sorry, I missed the beginning. You see, we are in the live performance, and the online content is or environment seems to be still a difficulty for us. Somehow, it connected and then disconnected. But we're here, and I'm glad to be with you all on this very interesting and important conference. So what was already kind of introduced by Valentine is that we have this long-standing partnership between the audiovisual and the live performance sector, which has been bringing together a lot of intelligence on a website called creativeskillseurope.eu. So here you see a screenshot of that website, and which will be updated, by the way, and modernized. So just keep an eye on it. Lots of new features will appear, but for the now, you already find it a rich source of information that have resulted both in research activities, but also, like you see there in the middle on the left, learning cards that were developed, very kind of practical cards presenting the skills, digital skills that you need with a short example. We also have wonderful podcasts with experts that came from a previous project and that I still find very interesting to listen at. So I just kind of invite you to listen in, whatever you do, if you're running and taking a good health break, or you're doing some cleaning in the house, just hear and listen to those experts. And feel free also to see our webinars on creative digital skills. So these are the ones that we like to highlight for the moment. But as you can see on the left side, on the drop-down menu, there are many other more sources that you can find. So maybe if we go to the next slide, we can tell you a bit more of the latest project phase that we concluded not long ago. And that aimed to continue having synergies more at a regional level. And what we mean by regional is not within the country, but regional seen from a European perspective. So we focused on Southern Europe. We had a conference in Madrid. We had a conference in Central and Eastern Europe, in Prague, and in Northern Europe, in Tallinn last June. So each of these regional conferences were very interesting because they brought together, and maybe some of you were also there, experts, people from from our membership, but also people who are very much involved in training and skills development and researching on labor markets, etc. So that was always a 2-day, very enriching debate, and you can also find more information on the previous website that I mentioned. Now, that was not an end point, actually it was a starting point, and the purpose is to continue developing our communication in the different regions of Europe, and to also facilitate and make possible that people get to know each other, meet people, because that was one of the key findings that we had, that curiously enough, sometimes people work in their respective organizations and don't know of each other, and it was great to see that we could provide that opportunity to bring different stakeholders together and speak with each other, so to kind of launch that kind of debate to discuss on skills needs, on what kind of training schemes can be developed, and how the social partners, of course, can also collaborate at the national level. What is important is that at that European level, going back to now the kind of helicopter view, is that we developed a few years ago a European framework of actions on skills, and Valentin will take you through that and tell you a bit more about different chapters that are in that framework.
Thank you, Anita. Yes, all these regional conferences, they were also structured around this document that we have adopted at a European level between European social partners. I won't go into too much detail about what the document really is and what it represents, but it's more about what were the findings and why we decided as social partners to focus on these topics, specifically when it comes to skills and lifelong learning in our sector. Because this document is a kind of like a formal agreement that sets the direction for the focus of our work. And it highlights really the most urgent employment, social, and economic challenges that can be mitigated through training and skills. So with the focus of this webinar also being employability. That's the core focus that we have as social partners now, is to make sure that the careers of the professionals in our sector, they are secured and that they have the right skills and the access to the proper training to sustain their careers. And through this document, we have identified the key skills needs and the key trainings that we have to promote and put in place as social partners. And this is also what structured the discussions during the regional conferences. So we have one chapter that is dedicated to the digital environment, so adaptation and innovation. How can professionals in our sector be provided with the right training and skills to adapt to the changes that are brought by the digital shifts? And back then, when we agreed on that framework of actions, we didn't talk so much about AI, for example, and today it's a very big topic, and there's definitely training skills that come with that. So how to learn from one another, also to learn from the experiences from the audiovisual sector, whether it's film and TV production, whether it's public broadcasting, whether it's in live performance. We have very different uses of AI, but also very common issues when it comes to ethical uses, when it comes to the changes that can happen in terms of employment and in terms of occupation, etc. So it's important to keep the discussions going and important to identify, for example, what are some training schemes that are existing in some countries and on which focus they approach this issue, and see if we can transfer or we can promote that knowledge to other countries, institutions, and sectors. So that's very much what we do. And here, for the focus of the digital, it's not only AI, it's also the other growing digital shifts that happen in the sector. So here we have different recommendations, and that's how it's organized in each chapter. We have a second one that we've called accompanying transitions. And here it's really making sure that the sector remains attractive, that it remains sustainable, and that it remains inclusive. And for that, professionals have to be equipped with the right skills. And in that sense, here it's more about, as I said, making sure to have in mind that through training we can push towards for more environmentally friendly practices and greener productions, for example. And with these new requests and requirements to have a sustainable sector comes new skills needs. And sometimes it falls on the roles or occupations of people that are already very busy, and that they have to take up these new skills. And so it's important to have the right training for them to be equipped with the right skills. It's also about diversifying the entry paths into the sector to make sure that we have diverse profiles and that we cater to a lot of people, but also to have the sector to be sustainable. Now we have to keep broadening the entryways into the sector and making sure everyone gets a chance to work, whether it's in film and TV, whether it's in live performance, whether it's in broadcasting as well. And one way of doing it is also to rethink the recruitment processes, ensure gender equality and diversity. And this also can be done through training. For example, there are a lot of new training schemes that emerge across Europe on intimacy coordination. And it's something that comes both in audiovisual for film and TV, but it comes also in live performance for representations as well. So these are new skills that make sure that the sector remains inclusive, remains diverse. And for that, we have to have the right training. And finally, we have a final chapter that we've named Access to Training for All. So here it's to make sure that everyone in the sector has access to training. So here it's more on the role of social dialogue and the need for public policies. Because in that case, and we know we have a sector with a very high proportion of freelancers and a very skilled workforce, but very isolated sometimes, and that don't have access to lifelong learning or training schemes. And here it's how to think of social dialogue as being one tool that can help finance and that can help put together the resources to provide training for every professional in our sector. And it's also about encouraging and stimulating exchanges at national and European level. And that's what we do through this project, but it's also how to encourage that at different levels. And so this document really highlights different recommendations on these different topics. And that's also, it sets also our priorities in terms of activities and what we want to continue working on at European and national level. And then we've divided the questions that were more relevant to our panel discussion today. Maybe I can go first with that, Anita, and then I let you add some elements. So there was one question that was, what was the role for trade union employers, organizations, and social dialogue? And here, and you've probably understood it through the project and the activities that we've done over the years, but here we do believe that the involvement of social partners, it allows us to have a fine understanding of the job market and the skills needs at national level. And if the employers' organizations and the workers' organizations come together, we have the opportunity to actually identify what are the relevant skills needs and what are the needs on the ground as well. And it's also, as I said before, a powerful tool to structure the sector and find a chance to finance training. We have examples, for example, in Belgium or in France, where the social partners are together in structured organizations that are financed through a levy on wages of the workers and the employers in the sector, and that allows to have a pool and money to then rethink and promote training opportunities. And I think these are schemes that work very well, and that also allows to have the right training skills for professionals. And that's what we do believe in as well. And finally, it's very much about employability. It's about securing the jobs and careers of the professionals. And that's why we believe that trade unions and employers organizations have to be involved in that. It's also about making our sector sustainable, especially with a high freelance workforce. So that's our purpose with Creative Skills Europe as well. And I will let Anita complete that.
Yeah, thank you, Valentine. We would say the same thing because let us be clear. I mean, skills is something an employer would take like obvious. We expect people to be trained well, and we are lucky to benefit from a large network of incredible good schools, not least to speak of the academia. But at the same time, what we also observe is that when people come at the work floor, there is always that moment of whether they are young, they have to learn on the work floor how things really are in practice. There's always the piloting or the trying out in the schools, but yet once you are in the work floor, of course, other elements, skills are needed. And one of these aspects that we have also identified is that soft skills are really crucial. One works in a team. You make together the show to happen. And under the moment of stress and needing to put the show on and have the audience in the theater waiting for the curtain to go up, there's a lot of people management there and people interaction, and we are all human beings with our own characters, and there those kind of soft skills have been observed as being one of the key elements to be needed for people entering the work floor, but also for those that are already there, understanding how to work with the different generations, the diversity, as we have already mentioned also in our presentation, etc. So also these are elements. I mean, I'm now picking out this one, but it is one that we hear a lot, and it also is connected, obviously, to other aspects such as mental well-being and how people perceive that they are feeling comfortable on the work floor. So this is definitely one of the areas that I would say we could further work on. And also that can be that we need to discuss jointly on what kind of skills training can be needed. What I also find as a role for more like the employer side is how the sector actually works. We have a strong public sector, but there's also a strong private sector. And one of the things that we have seen is that there is a tendency, and especially also with freelancers may jump between both public and private. And I think there is also an important role for the public sector financed organizations to also put it in, how should I say, better realize also that kind of skills development part, because we once you're also financed with public money, you should also ensure that people can also find their way then on the private market. So that interaction can be important, whilst at the same time, the private market may have other developments that may be already ahead of the public sector that can bring back. So that interaction, I think, is an area that we could still further explore in future. So that's to add to what Valentine said, but maybe it will lead further to discussions or questions from you, which I hope you will all do massively.
And just to finish, we had like another question on what were the new skills that we were identifying as social partners, and some of them have already been mentioned, but it's upskilling and reskilling when it comes to AI. It's definitely a big topic at the moment, and we think it's key that there is training that is developed to make sure that the workers are not left out from the sector, and that they have the proper skills to continue and to innovate as well, because it's a big innovation curve, but we have to make sure that it's done properly and ethically. So that's definitely one big strain of work. There's prevention of violence and harassment. That's definitely something as well that is key when it comes to learning. We mentioned intimacy coordination, but there are a lot of other now trainings that are being developed, because it comes also as an obligation from public funding depending on the countries. In France, for example, the film funds, they request, once they allocate money for a production, that the staff on the productions are trained when it comes to prevention of violence and harassment. So these are new obligations that come up, and it's also how to make sure that the sectors are safer and more inclusive, and we think that is very important. And I think one last aspect is green and sustainability. There are as well requirements from public funding, and we know that we are sectors that are heavily publicly funded. So in that sense, it's very important. And it's also something that can be done both by social partners as well. So that's for me.
Yes. Yep, indeed.
Okay, there are no questions at the moment from inside the room, but I collected a question from outside the room that I try to translate or to elaborate a bit. So, which is, in your opinion, the level of collaboration of the Creative Skills Europe with the academic system? I would add, in particular, with higher education institution, because we know that VET is by definition more close to the labor market. Higher education, maybe the relationship can be slightly different. So which is the level of collaboration, and do you think this is sufficient or can be improved and helpful for some specific aspects of the work of the Creative Skills Europe? You can answer maybe from your different perspectives.
what I can say maybe is that usually in the meetings that we organize in the regional conferences, etc., we always invite higher education institutions, whether it's film schools or theater schools. We always invite them, and sometimes they come, sometimes they are not able to come, but they're always invited, and it's always very interesting for us to have them in the room because it very much connects to the reality of the sector as well, for them to have the proper training to then reflect the employment needs, no? So it's always very important to have them, and it's also about giving the right skills to the workers. So definitely.
Yeah, thanks for this very relevant question, and I think very important because, like you say, Umberto with the academia is very kind of labor market focused, which also means that the connection is very close. There's also trainings foreseen. A lot of people from the sector also teach in vocational training. So that kind of interaction is a kind of natural kind of passaging on of skills. I think it's different to the more kind of university related training, where you would have more a kind of academic focus, but that is natural because the goal is also different, is more abstract approach. And then you of course also have the conservatoires or the training of the actors or the musicians, with whom we also have a collaboration, and where again you will have people also sometimes teaching or come for specific classes or master classes. So I think that kind of connection is so important, both for the upcoming emerging artists as well as for those that are already in working in a theater or so, and bring back their professions. And the artistic work is, of course, something that constantly evolves, and one needs to tie in well. I think we are fortunate to have been always been working with people that wanted to tie back, having their professional careers, but also to bring back their experiences to the ones that are getting trained.
Yes, I think that sometimes there is a kind of I mean the hierarchy of the different level of apprenticeship are turned upside down when we take into account the educational system, or the higher education system, and the labor market concrete happenings. I'm thinking about, for instance, to the set designer, preparation that we have a long. As Accademia Teatro alla Scala, we have a long tradition with a specialization course for set builders, actually, that comes out from the Fine Arts Academy. But if we look at the EQF levels, for instance, of the European Union, it means that a person with a level 6 of EQF, after having the level 6, gain a level 5 supplementary diploma.
Yes,
So this creates some counter circuits that can actually make the two, let's say, systems, I mean the educational system and the labor system, a bit far one from each other. So it's very interesting, at the same time complicated to join the forces together to create something proactive and positive for the sector. No.
Yeah, and to add to what you say is, it even gets more complicated once we talk about transferability of skills, or the EQF you obtained, whether that will be the same interpreted in another country.
Yes.
So there also, being an international sector, also brings an additional challenge, because what is considered maybe an EQF in Italy level 5 may perhaps be 6 then or 4 in the other countries. So yeah, that's also an issue that the European Union wants to look at, but to make it happen is a complex issue.
Yeah, and another question that comes directly from myself, actually, how is the cross-sectorial perspective, and I'm talking really about those sectors which are outside the traditional performing arts and audiovisual business, is really impacting your reflection, or not so much? I mean, of course, you are firstly focused on the traditional sectors of audiovisual and performing arts. But in the moment that the cross-sectorial innovation is tackled by the European Union, is tackled by the Pact for Skill, does this have a concrete, tangible effect on the reflection that you do on your final stakeholders or not?
Well, I think I would say the ones that are more in the policy making, yes. The ones
Okay.
that are really like managing the theater may perhaps not think of it, although I will immediately also say the contradiction, because there's also, as artistic works also become more and more kind of a variety, bringing in different kind of impressions of society. Obviously, one will also work with specialists of other sectors at all, but then that is more kind of collaborative, artistic kind
Hmm.
of cooperation, rather than that it is going to be fully integrated. Let's say a concrete example. There's a project that is working on the topic of sustainability. So in the performance, and work with biologists and with environmentalists, because they are part of the creation of the performance. Whilst that is the purpose is an artistic end result, because of that working together, the process that the artist is going through will automatically have an implicit effect on that person's skills. But how you resonate that and how you kind of describe that, then what kind of upskilling in a way that person has achieved, that is a real challenge. So I will ask you, Umberto, how it would.
My role today is to put as much as possible things on the ground, I would say, because
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
time we stick with a lot of reflection, a lot of theoretical. That it's correct, it's perfectly
Yeah.
correct and important. But sometimes I consider that we have to keep the tangible aspect of work we are elaborating, which is actually existing, which does have concrete proof on the floor. So that's why I'm maybe asking some provocative questions in this on this occasion, which is also, let's say, an important occasion to share
Yeah,
thoughts for all of us
yeah, yeah,
coming from different and varied sectors, actually.
exactly. Yeah,
So different face of the medals, let's say.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Anita, and thank you, Valentin. We are 2 minutes ahead of schedule, so we can have a bit longer virtual coffee break. We decided to keep short the two sessions, also to, let's say, it's not even easy to follow, online seminars and appointments. So that's probably a choice that we did consciously. And so we have now a virtual coffee break for 15 minutes, and we'll be back at 15:15, quarter past 15, with Francesca Martinelli. I will introduce her as soon as we will be again online altogether. Thank you very much, both of you, and see you
Thank
in
Thank you,
15
you.
Umberto.
minutes.
Yes, see you.
Welcome back. After this short break, we have now the opportunity to assist to the second panel of this seminar, which is focusing on a national specificity, the Italian one. The institution which has been invited is the Centro Studi Doc Foundation, which is a research center based in Verona that carries out research, documentation, training, and sharing activities to support the dignity of work, with particular attention to art, creativity, culture, knowledge, and technology. As cross-sectorial opportunities are increasingly influencing the market, generating novel pathways for growth and resilience, Italian data does offer valuable insights into current dynamics and future skill demands within the sector. New occupational trends are emerging, from hybrid artistic technological roles to innovative models of collaboration, while digitalization and artificial intelligence are accelerating this shift, particularly in performing arts and live events. The title of panel 2 is Changes in the Labor Market Demand for CCI Professionals, Insights from the Italian Context, with a focus on digitalization and AI's impact on occupations. Our panelist is Francesca Martinelli, who is the director at the Centro Studi Doc Foundation. So I think we can now start the second panel of our seminar. Please, Francesca.
Thank you very much, Umberto, for the invitation and the presentation. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining us. Now I move here. Here is the title of the presentation, and today, as Umberto anticipated, I will explore how labor market demand is changing for cultural and creative workers, with a particular focus on Italy, and how digitalization and AI are reshaping our occupation. So here is the road for my speech. We'll start with a general look at the cultural and creative industries. Then we will examine the European context, clarify methodological issue. We will then focus on Italy, and I will present needs of skills and digitalization in Italy, the initial results of a survey that we did on the impact of artificial intelligence on technicians, a focus on entertainment Italian field, and then a little description of workers who decided to create cooperatives in Italy. So first thing first, why the cultural and creative industry matter. So cultural and creative industries are high-scale, knowledge-intensive sectors, and they contribute to innovation, digital transformation, regional development, and often they act as economic multipliers. But they are also volatile, with labor market signals that it evolves quickly, and especially with AI and platformization. In this framework, Italy is a relevant case because it combines a strong creative economy with unlikely persistent structural vulnerabilities. Concerning cultural and creative industry, we have to remind that the definition of cultural and creative industry is evolving. Historically, it was tied to the concept of cultural industry introduced by Adorno and Horkheimer in 1947, but today the landscape evolved and includes also design, digital content, gaming, architecture, and more. From this broad definition, we have also to consider, if we are looking at data, that also definitions are different. Definition from the EU, the OECD, and the DCMS, which is the British Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, which is used by different researchers and from KEA also, are different. And the differences between definitions, of course, complicates data comparison. And then, as Umberto Bellodi recalled before, this shift from STEM to STEAM captures how creativity has become a cognitive engine for innovation in all sectors. And so creativity is, we can just consider creativity just a decorative element, but it's really an engine of innovation. So focusing quickly on Europe, because we already talked about that, but I need to talk a little bit about Europe to understand better the weight of Italy. Across Europe, we see a larger and diverse workforce. We talk about around 8 million workers in cultural occupations, with 1/3 self-employed, as was already anticipated. And mostly of the workers have tertiary education degrees, which indicates high skill intensity. There is also a domination by micro-enterprise, and this means that there is a limited bargaining powers, as already anticipated in previous panel. And in the pre-pandemic, the cultural and creative industries contribute to the European GDP with 4.4%. And this is a significant share if we think that it can be compared to other key economic sectors, such as information and communication technology and accommodation and food services, which are at the same level. Without going very deep, there are some European drivers of change which concern digitization, platformization, the adoption of AI, and then there is, of course, the skill gap, not only but above all in the digital. And these trends create opportunities but also tensions, above all around job quality. Now, methodological note, because before entering the Italian case, I have to clarify a key point, which is that the Italian data and European data are not comparable, and that's why I choose this image with, you know, the hand in the face, like, no, why? Because the point is that Italy uses what is called in Italy Sistema Produttivo Culturale e Creativo as reference, which is simply the collection of data coming from cultural, creative, cross-sectoral occupation. It's very broad. While when we talk about work, we use Eurostat data that includes only cultural enterprises and cultural employment. So if Italian numbers look bigger, it is because the perimeter is wider, not because Italy has more cultural and creative industries than all of Europe. Still, trends can be compared meaningfully, above all in labor dynamics, for example. So going to Italian key figures. Using this perimeter, broad perimeter, we have 1.55 million workers that generates 104 billion euros of added value, and almost 300,000 enterprises in the cultural and creative industries core. So only working in the creative industries and not also the creative-driven enterprises. The growth after COVID has been strong. We are talking around 13% of added value since 2019. These data, as you can see, are not immediately comparable with the European one, but if we use the data of Eurostat, we can see that Italy is the third country for relevance in the European Union, because it produces around 11-12% of added value in cultural and creative industries, and so is the third one after Germany and France. So it's a relevant country for cultural and creative industries. But there are two sides. There is the positive sides, the pole of strengths, and the vulnerabilities. So it has a dual structure, and concerning the strengths, We have stronger poles that include software, video games, digital content, design, architecture, communication, marketing, publishing. All these sectors are important because they combine creativity, technology, they can export capacity, and they also attract investment and skilled talent. But at the same time, there are some vulnerabilities. Vulnerable sectors are the performing arts, the visual arts, because there are mostly micro enterprises with precariousness. The field of heritage and museum is very weak because it depends on public funding and is based on project-based contracts. There are many micro enterprises and freelancers with low incomes and limited protections. At the same time, this is not a segment, but there is a peculiarity on the Italian territory, which is the regional divide. There are only few cities that concentrate opportunities, while at the same time, peripheral areas are at the risk of exclusion. And so this duality, in some ways, it mirrors European patterns, but is more acute in Italy. Going to skills and digitalizations, what do Italian labor market data tell us? So if we combine the data on the mandatory communication of work, we can see that now digital skills are essential. Also, project management is increasingly central. There is need of entrepreneurial skills more and more, like budgeting, fundraising, audience development. There is always a crucial need for soft skills such as adaptability, teamwork, problem solving, and are very important also foreign language and intercultural skills. Of course, this is also due to the fact that Italian is spoken mostly only in Italy. If we talk about the features of this kind of skills, these are no longer vertical, so they have to combine different profiles. Cultural and creative industries require profiles now that are hybrid, that combines creativity, digital literacy, management, and data analysis. And so at the same time, the sectors have boundaries that are becoming blurred. For example, audiovisual, music, gaming, and design, they use often the same tools for working. But there is an important issue, which is the educational one, because the education system updates slowly. In the panel before was already mentioned, while the labor demand evolves quickly. So there are these two dimensions also in Italy. In this framework, digitalization is a structural driver in cultural creative industries, but of course not only. Still, we see these new hybrid roles emerging, like extended reality designers, AI-assisted editors, digital curators, content strategists. And so now creative production integrates with cloud workflows, real-time engines, multimodal AI tools. And that means that on one side, the creative process is becoming more and more technical, but on the other side, the technical process is becoming more and more creative. Concerning the tool of AI, we see the use of this kind of tools in publishing, audiovisual, music for composition, journalism for text generation, and design prototyping. So what we see is that these tools actually don't know to replace creativity, but they are transforming the creativity, and they shift tasks towards supervision and curation. So they are reducing the workload for people. In this context, we decided to do research, and This is the research we decided to do. It's a survey on the impact of artificial intelligence on the technical workforce of the entertainment. And we decided to do this research because technical workers are usually invisible in studies, but they are heavily exposed to digitalization, so it's very interesting part to study. And also because Italy is unique, there is a large cooperative ecosystem, but also the first national law about AI in Europe. And this is so the first national survey on how AI is reshaping backstage technicians' work. We decided to ask technicians if and how much in their daily practices they use AI, how this has affected their work, their identity, which level of trust and risk they perceive, which are the opportunities, what they know about the regulation, and how do different sectors integrate AI. The methodology is a mixed method approach. That means that there is a survey where we collect quantitative data, but also qualitative data based on open answers. And the idea is to use the system of snowball sampling, which is simply spread the word. And so this is also important because unluckily, but it's still working, we had until now around 43 respondents, which is not that much, but at least we were lucky, even if the sample is small, is consistent with the national characteristic of technicians, so the responses I'm going to present may be representative. Although, of course, our goal is to reach at least 200 responses, but we have still time. So, focusing on the respondents, most respondents are men. We are talking about a prominent group of 25-35 years old. And both these information are consistent with the national data because there is actually a gender gap in this field, with national data are around 85-86% of men in this field, so we are on the same level, and the prominent age group is the same. Our respondents are mostly located in Lombardy, Veneto, and Emilia-Romagna, and these are precisely the areas with the most services, structured theaters, and production centers in Italy. There is also this other information, which is that 65% of respondents are cooperatives members, but this is consistent because many technicians actually are members of cooperatives in Italy. We talk about it later. And the professions include audio, video, lighting, and production, which are actually a representative sample because these four professions are historically the main hubs of technical employment in Italy, and the prevalent areas of work are live, festival, congress, theater, and television. So we were unlucky, but at least it works. So, talking about the answers, we ask how they use AI, and we saw that half of respondents do not use AI yet, but intend to, while 1/3 of the respondents already use it. For early adopters, frequency rates from occasional to constant. And interpreting it, we can assume that it indicates a sector in transition with AI skills that will be likely become essential soon. Concerning the tool used, they use a variety of tools. Here I put the dimensioning function of the presence of the answers, and we see that the mostly used is, of course, ChatGPT. But there are also Copilot, which is a Microsoft assistant, Gemini of Google, Perplexity, which are main, and then other example, DALL-E for images, Sora, which is our creation for software for images of the OpenAI family, Claude 11 Labs, which is a voice generator and the assistant of Adobe. But what is AI used for? Here we saw that three main clusters emerge. The cluster A, that I decided to call A, is the cluster of technical operations, where we have mostly the 60% of respondents that say that they use it for troubleshooting, understanding and programming consoles, protocols. So here we think it seems that AI replace Google and technical manuals, speeding up support. Cluster B, alpha respondent, they say that they use AI for planning and design support. So doing technical sheets, production plans, queue list, safety sketches, voice correction. So here I become a production assistant, reducing cognitive loads and time, while cluster C is more related to creative content, such as video generation and audio preparation. We have here 1/3 of respondents that say they use AI for these contents, but they also think that this is the use more risky. And now we are going to see the reason why. Because we ask also about perception of AI and concerns, and we see certain level, not high level of trust in AI, but a higher level of expected impact on AI, with opportunities that include efficiency, cost reduction, new creative possibilities, and risk that include job displacement caused by automation, skill erosion, standardization of contents, copyright violation. So in these answers, we can read a strong ambivalence, because technical staff on one side perceive high impact of AI, but has moderate trust. This means that technicians see AI as powerful, but at the same time risky. So there is a mix of enthusiasm, but also anxiety. I think everybody of us is a bit in the same situation. This, for me, is a bit the same. Concerning the profession, because we also asked them which professions, in their opinion, will benefit most or least from the use of AI, and it emerges that hybridization of skills is the key trend. So we need technical skills, digital skills, but also ethical perspective. There is the risk of de-skilling for those who cannot adapt, who cannot use digital. And there are new roles that appear also, like AI technicians, creative system operator. So this means that the divides between workers may widen. And so we can assume that AI does not simply replace work, but it reprofessionalizes it. Concerning sectors, AI adoption varies across contexts, and each subsector has its own use. For example, live and festival are a strong use, a fast use for logistic and problem solving, while theater is more reflecting with a slower adoption based more on ethical reflection on the use of these tools. Corporate events have a strong use for documentation and communication with clients, while broadcasting and video have the most advanced use because they integrate with editing and post-production. Concerning the regulation, Italy's law is the first national law on AI that regulate among transparency, accountability, anti-discrimination. Then here, ironically, in some way, technicians fear the risk that the law addresses, but most of them have no idea that the law exists. So the sector, we can say that the sector needs legal literacy, collective bargaining, also because, of course, this regulation will influence labor relations in the coming year. So preliminary conclusion on this leader research. is the AI adoption is happening in this context, and but workers perceive at the same time empowerment and fear. Skills are reconfigured, not simply replaced by AI, and training and collective frameworks are urgently needed. So this can be really a turning point for technicians' professions. I move to the last part of my presentation. We choose the Italian entertainment field, the weak part, let's say, of the Italian market. And unluckily, what we can say is the entertainment field in Italy presents structural precariousness conditions. So we have discontinuous contracts, isolation, undeclared work. And this leads to low incomes, lack of access to protection schemes, and poor bargaining power. Always these words that are recurring, you know, after even in the words of Valentina and Anita. So what we can say in Italy is that this is a sector where the mismatch between cultural value produced and labor value is extremely visible. Concerning the figures, they are just explaining that, and they are coherent with this vision, because if on one side the CI, which is the Association of Editors, show and composers, they show audience growth, more tickets, more concerts, more live events, and they talk about recovery after the pandemic. The number of films, which is the pension institute, Italian institute, they show that there is a structural precariousness. We are talking about around 340,000 workers with, in average, 96 days worked per year, and an annual income of 11,500 euros. And I just want to recall that last year in Italy, the poverty threshold was 11,280 euros. So we are there. I mean, we are really slightly above the poverty threshold. And there is also a drop in numbers of workers. So there is this growth of market that doesn't reflect in workers' condition. But why these incomes are so low? On one side, because entertainment workers often combine multiple jobs. Their work in entertainment is not always the first one, always is the second one. And then there is a unlikely high level of undeclared work, is very significant. We did a research with the Centro Studi DAC Foundation in 2019, and we discover, in the way you can discover something which is difficult to understand, that there were 4 billion euros in undeclared work only in live music, so only music. And some causes are the bureaucratization, complex and social security rules, lack of knowledge, underinvestment in culture. So this is the big picture and panorama. To conclude, I always want to end my presentation with a positive note, so I didn't want to end with this sad picture. So I decided also to talk about how workers decide to counter these difficulties and this structural precariousness. And that's the reason why they decided since the 80s to create entertainment cooperatives. And actually, the model is very peculiar because since the 80s, they create what we call self-management cooperatives. Why self-management? Because we're talking about mostly worker cooperatives where people enter. They create the cooperative and then become employees of the cooperative. So artists, technicians, they access to social security rights, unemployment benefit, minimum wage, safety, union rights, They enter in a community, they mutualize services, but at the same time they are members of the cooperative, and so they are entrepreneurs. They can decide how to create the cooperative, and they decide to create a cooperative where they are also free to manage their daily activity. They decide where to work, with whom, and in this way they are at the same time free, but they are covered by the rules of work. They are employees, so you have specific rights. The biggest entertainment cooperative in Italy is Doc Servizi, which was founded in 1919 by musicians, and from 10 musicians. Now we are talking about a national network of 27 branches with over 6,000 members and 65 million turnover. It expanded to include technicians, dancers, actors, and other creative workers. And this model is exactly the model that combines autonomy with employee protection. And this is a hybrid solution that really works for fragmented careers. Concerning how it works, this is just an example, because in Italy, pre-pandemic, there were like 80 self-management cooperatives in the entertainment field, but this is the biggest. So like for the other self-management cooperative, there is a cooperative and democratic governance based on one member, one vote. And at business level, members contribute to collective services such as legal support, fiscal support, digital tools, mobility, safety. They share the cost to have all these services, also the travel agency that help them to travel across the countries or in Europe or in the world. All the surpluses are invested into the cooperatives, so infrastructures, expenses, or trainings. And the combination of the fact that they are employees, in the cooperative there is the management of different activities, there is a base pay, minimum wage, union rights, the monitoring of income thanks to a digital platform, and job opportunities offered by the cooperative led to the fact that members typically earn 65% more than the Italian average. So, which is the impact of cooperative on the cultural and creative industry? Well, definitely cooperative increase income stability, they strengthen bargaining power, they simplify compliance, and they institutionalize solidarity. So the important thing is that they demonstrate that there are alternative organization models that can improve job quality without sacrificing creativity, which is still at the core of the cooperative structure, because of course artists decided to create a cooperative to be free, but also to have more rights. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Madeline, okay. Thank you, Francesca. Very interesting and full of insights. I remember to the people in the room that they can raise the hand and let's say book the position for a question. I have some questions coming from outside the room. Actually, the first one that I reshape a bit, of course, as usual, it's about training for members of cooperatives. I mean, it's very clear from your speech that there is a strong need. I mean, also your research on AI, it's highlighting the need of gaining new competencies to reskill and upskill the professionals working in the field. And so the question is how the cooperatives can endorse or enhance training opportunities for the associates, or if there are actually training programs for the associates of cooperatives.
Thank you for the question. Actually, Doc Servizi, as I briefly said, already invested in trainings program. And there are some basic training programs for safety. Some are mandatory because if you have to work, you need a safety training. Others are higher level to become more specialized in specific areas, such as rigging. Then there are trainings dedicated to specific professionalities, such as rigging, assistant production, and the cooperatives, doc servizi in particular, invest money for trainings both on professionalization in professions, but also in tools. And actually, this research that we are conducted was asked also by the members of Doc Servizi, because they wanted to know how this situation is working, and they wanted to know if the cooperative would organize trainings. So what we are going to learn is also what skills are lacking, and the cooperative will then decide to use this research for maybe or organize a dedicated training on AI.
A question that I had myself: how you usually manage this training? Because we perfectly know that there is time and money is always the two main issues for people working in the field. No, they struggle to find the proper time to invest on self training. There are a lot of overlaps with professionals' duties, so it's not easy for people working in the field to get opportunities for reskilling and upskilling. So how you manage the training opportunities, and how you acknowledge the training opportunities, because this is another point which is raising very strongly at European level. So I'm interested in this actually.
This is the question. QF. Vabbè. So Doc Servizi organize, schedule these trainings regularly. So there is a calendar, and you decide, the member decide when and where participate. They are in different places. There are also online trainings. For example, during the COVID, they created a very rich program on trainings for free for reskilling professionals while they were stuck in their house. And concerning the acknowledgement, is always complicated. For example, now we're working on a project with the Lega Coop Lombardia, and we are recording a new typology of technician, which is the audio video light technicians, and the idea is to put it in the skills recognition. So it depends on the regions. In some regions, the trainings that are organized by Doc Servizi are recognized already, so you have the recognition by the region. In other regions, doesn't exist, so the foundation, for example, is working on that to support members of Doc Servizi to obtain recognition at least a regional level. But you know better than me that this is really
Yes,
complicated field.
for those who are participating from different countries rather than Italy, in Italy we have a training system which is based on the regional authority. That's why Francesca is mentioning this. So the vet training, professional training, is actually managed by regional authorities. So there can be the paradox that something which is recognized in Lombardia is not recognized in Veneto, and so on. Actually, the labor market is leading this process. It's not strictly related to the authority who is certifying a specific competence in reality. But on the, let's say, institutional point of view, there is still this aspect which is quite important. There are some tools which are collecting competencies in a common framework. We have the Atlante of competencies, which is Italian to collect and to match the different profiles together, but it's maybe not enough. Probably, I don't know how Doc Servizi is dealing with this, but academies and higher education institutions are trying to deal with this aspect. Micro-credential could be a solution. Micro-credential, it's a system which is actually recognizing, let's say, microcredits to the specific training that you deliver to the worker. So in the moment that the worker capitalize or want or wish to capitalize the training that he gained, he has this kind of mutual recognition, or at least some
Okay.
indication that can help in merging together the labor market sector and the academic sector. I think this can be maybe the topic of another conference
Yes.
later on. But I think it's a very good aspect and a very good point to take into account. I have another question. You mentioned several arising new profiles, arising new professions. One of those was the content strategist for heritage. You have some, let's say, extra information about this, because it's actually a profile in which I can see a lot of potentialities, especially if we combine this profile with the idea of decentralizing the culture and market in smaller, let's say, cities, in smaller region, in smaller center. Do you have any extra information about this specific profile? I mean, among your associates or among your studies?
This figure profile,
Uh-huh.
this profile is also a digital, related to the digital world some way, because
Okay.
is the more like the content creator related to the cultural heritage that can also lead the innovation in the sense, for example, of introducing serious games
Hmm.
or gaming in general in the heritage. So the idea is to create content and a strategy in using content that can go in different direction, also from storytelling to how to develop and transmit this storytelling.
Okay, I think this is very, it's a very crucial, it's a very crucial profile, and really, I'm thinking, especially in a country like Italy, in which we know that our cultural sector, as you were mentioning, it's somehow wider than other countries, because we have also this strong alliance, or we hopefully would have this strong alliance between the cultural sector and the tourism, for instance, the cultural touristic sector. This could be definitely, this is actually an important profile to invest on, and in which probably we should develop some further reflections also at academic level, or at training levels. If I think to the Accademia Teatro alla Scala is structured, my institution is structured, but also other academies are structured. And I have another question, which is about the different AI tools. Yeah, let me check it better. Yeah, it is about the slide that you showed about the different AI tools that are, let's say,
Mm,
most common. The ChatGPT is still the main one, while some technical tools are more, let's say, sideline, no, rather
mm,
than
mm, mm,
ChatGPT,
mm.
which is the more commercial, spread out
Yes.
among all the users, among also probably us actually. So the question is, don't you think that there would be the possibility to create to internally in your cooperative, or maybe with the help of a provider, to create enough sort of alphabetization of the possibility and opportunities of AI, to really make more conscious the choice of the workers towards the tool, the specific tool of AI to be used in the specific work?
Actually, definitely, because Doc Servizi decided to identify an AI responsible. And
Hmm.
so the cooperative has now a person who is in charge of studying for every department, now the administrative side, how to implement AI. Now, for sure, like in the general dimension, AI in Doc Servizi is most used in communication and marketing, but this is normal, like in every industry. But there is this person who is in charge of that, and for sure, the idea is to multiply the effect and valorize the use of AI to reduce the timing consuming of certain kind of activity in the research, was clear that AI is mostly used for that. Time consuming, cost reducing, but cost reducing is more related to time.
Yeah.
Above all in the routinary task, the production
Yeah.
activity is sometimes very repetitive, so there are tasks that can be automated.
Yes, definitely. Okay, Francesca, let me check if there are some other insights from the audience. It seems no. I don't know if the other panelists, yeah, or maybe we can join the other two panelists together with Francesca for a moment, just to see if if the presentation of Francesca was actually fitting with the experience that you have and the let's say the data that you have in Unimay and in Pearl. Just a question for you, actually, Valentina and Anita.
Thank you, Francesca, for the presentation. Actually, the whole AI bit really resonated with some of the concerns that we have identified as well on the needs for training, especially for the technicians. I think it was very interesting to have that data, because it's that the data actually on how AI is used at the moment is quite scarce, and we're also running research on our side within our unions to see a bit how it's perceived and how it's actually used. And I think it's the same feeling of being scared about the potential impact that it can has, but also the opportunity. So it's very, very similar, I'd say. And yeah, I think that was the key point that resonated, I think, the most.
Yeah, I can only echo what has been said. Obviously, yeah, it's, how should I say, it's still a very complex topic to kind of understand what the real impact is, and how we can provide the right answers in implementing it in our sector, because there's so many different dimensions to it. But it's a process of kind of continuing to have the conversation and to kind of see what, keeping ourselves aware of what happens also in other sectors, what we can learn also from other sectors, and bring together all that intelligence, because it's one of these topics that a bit similar to like what we have experienced with greening and environmental questions, that it's so broad that it needs a long time to kind of process it and find the right ways of addressing it in the practice and in our respective organizations.
Okay. Thank you, Francesca. You want to add something, or you okay?
Just thank
That's
you.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Francesca.
the
Thank you,
interesting
Valentin.
information.
And thank you, Anita. And thank you, Anita. So thank you all, actually, for this enriching exchange session. And we are now in the closing act of our seminar, which will be held by Professor Domenico Quaranta, director at School of Art and New Technologies at Brera Academy. Professor Quaranta is an independent. Hello, Domenico. Professor Quaranta is an
Hello.
independent art critic and curator, and his closing keynote is also an opportunity for us to remind the frame in which this seminar has been possible. That is the one of the project IartNET, an international platform for artistic research and cultural heritage in higher education, in the arts and music, funded by the NextGenerationEU program and coordinated by Brera Academy, represented by Domenico. So I'm glad to leave the floor to the closing keynote of Professor Domenico Quaranta. Please, Domenico.
Thank you, Umberto, for the introduction and for inviting me as well. And thank you, all the audience, for attending this really interesting seminar. I'm very happy and proud to be here, both in representation of Accademia di Belle Arti di Brera in Milan, where I teach and I'm serving as director of the School of Arts and New Technologies and of the IartNET project, for which I'm coordinating the work package number 4, which is focused on the implementation of an international research hub in Italy aimed at forming a research community of supervisors and experts and designing innovative doctoral degrees. I will try to address this closing keynote very humbly, as I have actually more to learn than to say in this context. But I also have something to say. I won't provide data, but luckily Francesca was able to provide many of them. But I will talk from experience, trying to connect to some of the issues raised by the previous speakers. As Umberto Bellodi put very clearly in his opening keynote, institutions from the AFAM sector, to which both Accademia alla Scala and Accademia di Brera belong, train not just artists, but also professionals. This is even more true in the context of my institution for the school that I'm directing, which can potentially address a labor market that spans from the art world, where students can find employment as studio assistants, gallery assistants, curators, writers and journalists, exhibition installers, set designers, and of course in museums, foundations, magazines, art galleries and auction houses, to the professional world, where they can work as photographers, audiovisual professionals, game designers, web designers, interaction designers, and exhibition designers. To be even more true to reality, I have to admit that many of my students are actually very disillusioned about art and about becoming artists. This is not surprising, as the art world often appears to be an impenetrable fortress to outsiders. And even though it is often very open to contributions from younger generations, and there is a lot of interest and rhetorics in so-called young artists. It is also a highly selective world and rarely offers the conditions for the development of a sustainable artistic practice in the long term. While the professional activities it offers appears to be characterized by widespread precariousness that offers no long-term guarantees. A side effect of this is that my students often care more about acquiring technical skills that can lead them to stable professional jobs than about developing aesthetic and cultural competencies that also belong to the training of an artist, and about developing innovative and critical thought. So a larger part of my job consists in making them understand that a proper artistic training can be useful whatever they are going to do in the future, as it would refine the practice and strengthen their ability to invent and to envision new creative solutions that they will be able to apply in various professional fields. I believe that this is true now more than ever. As creative professionals, in fact, our students have to face a situation in which of course, the creative industries in Italy are largely based on precarious, underpaid labor. Francesca made it really evident for the entertainment field, but it's also very true for the art world. And are affected, as she said, by structural vulnerabilities. Furthermore, as Valentin already put it, the creative industries in Italy are a very skilled workforce, but very freelance and isolated as well. In shaping their career, these students have increasingly to compete in a labor market that has been reconfigured by online crowdworking platforms that rely on a global, anonymous yet highly professionalized workforce that's open to accept exceptionally low fees for their gigs. Finally, in the age of generative AI, the playing field is increasingly reconfigured not really by the competition of AI models, but by the employers' belief that they can rather rely on them almost for free than on the skills of an expensive professional. Of course, again, I can't provide data on this. But and I'm open to discuss this point. But to my experience, many people working both within and outside the creative industries that before the advent of generative AI were still open to work with the professionals and designers for I don't know, communication images, posters, design for books and so on. Now sometimes have the feeling that they can do it itself by using by employing the proper AI tool for this skill, and this would inevitably maybe not really replace the work of creatives, but create another level of competition that would have an impact on their incomes. Last but not least, at the moment, art students can see any viable third way between being an artist, art professional in the art world, or being a creative professional in the cultural creative industries. In other words, there is not yet any stable ground for the integration of an art-trained professional in the non-creative industry at large. There are, of course, models for this to happen. From my field of competence, one possible reference is the historical effort to facilitate the collaboration between artists and engineers performed in the 70s by organizations such as the US-based Experiments in Art and Technology, and more recently by another US-based nonprofit which is called Rhizome. Both of these organizations tried to shape, to create a model in order to put together in the same room people from the art field and people from the technical field in order to have them reasoning together and working together either on artistic projects or on engineering projects in which the artist can provide an interesting input. Another possible reference is the increasing number of artists in residence positions, which are available in many tech companies, for example, Google, but many other are providing the same positions, and scientific or technological institutions such as CERN, for example, which has an artist in residence program. But all this is performed in a very unsystematic way. My conclusion, that might seem a provocation, but it's not, is that the STEAM model, based as it is on an interdisciplinary and integrated teaching approach that invites artistic education to work hand in hand with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, could be an extraordinary leap forward, but also that it will collapse as a bubble if it doesn't happen at the same time on the level of the education and on the level of the labor market. And if policymakers, organizations, frameworks, and stakeholders don't prove to be able to change at the same time both these levels. This is, in my view, the main challenge we are facing at the moment. Of course, students from art academies, from conservatories, from places like Accademia alla Scala can work in their specific field of competence. They can work in the art world, they can work in the creative industries, but I think the true visionary application of the STEAM model could be to allow them to find a position which is not unsystematic, which is not irregular, but it's somehow devised by regulations within the field of the uncreative industries. And so I would love to see the STEAM model to be systematically implemented, not just on the educational level, but in the labor market as well, putting the artist in the loop of any kind of business, enforcing the integration of creative skills in the uncreative industries. So this is more or less my point from the narrow point of view of the school where I'm teaching and that I'm directing. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Domenico. Thank you very much. Really. Actually, your closing keynote reminds me also the topic of professional orientation that we do in our institutions. So if I can, I would address you just one last question. I mean, really, according to your perception, according to your point of view, is professional orientation a duty of an higher education institution, or is something that it's ethically part of the mission of an higher institution and is perceived as such, or not? I mean, which could be a proper approach to professional orientation for an higher education institution, in your opinion, really?
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. What I have to say is that we have really very small instruments in the public academia at the moment to perform this professional orientation. Of course, we talk with the students, we try to shape their way through through the years, but of course that's just the starting point. No, many learning actually takes place when they start working within their field of competence. Something can be done with stages and
Internships.
possibilities to collaboration that can be created between students, between the academia and the companies outside of it. But it's really, I think, the starting point. Of course, it's very important for us to help students understand what are their competencies and where and how they could apply them in the work field. We also, how can I say, it's very important as well to make them understand that developing their own personal approach to things, their own creativity is very important, but they also have to be patient and realize that their progress within the work field will take place very slowly, and probably will demand the combination of different professions at the same time. Now, usually visual artists know that they have to have another occupation, a day job, in order to invest their energies within the art field and increase their presence in there. But yeah,
Okay.
definitely, I agree with you that we will need more professional mediation again between
Mm.
the academia and the labor and the work field.
Yes, and definitely the transnational exchange on this becomes more and more important. So we can provide our students a really full frame scenario to understand which are the opportunities and the fact that actually the cultural and creative paths for working are not so narrow. Maybe no. So I mean, at least
Yeah.
we have this kind of outputs from all the conferences and seminars we take part around Europe and not only around Europe. Okay, thank you, Domenico Quaranta, for this closing keynote. And if I have the chance, I want to thank also the panelists, Valentin Gessis, Anita Debar, Francesca Martinelli. Thank you to all the people who have been attending these two parallel sessions, the in-room and the out-of-the-room session. And thank you to the technical directors, Andrea Angeli and Anna Lanaya, for, let's say, managing all this system, because it's not actually just a Zoom call. It's a bit more complicated. So thank you for your efforts, and thank you everybody for the participation. See you soon, and have a nice afternoon. Bye.